In this video, we're going to create a robot arm. What I would like to do first is look at the rubric for the robot arm, go through some of the commands that will be used. Once I'm done with that, I will open up a sketch that I've created, and we will look at the labeled sketch along with the rubric, and then we will create the sketch in the program Rhinoceros. Looking at the rubric, I'm going to ask you to disregard the top row. I'm not going to introduce the shell command, and we're not going to use that in our 3D model. We will be using the revolve command or the rail command. You can choose either. They both are useful for creating surfaces. So think about where you could use revolve or where you could use rail. I would like you to try to use the revolve command or the rail command at least 3 times. Additionally, we're going to use split. I'd like that to be used at least 3 times as well. We're going to use loft. Again, I'd like you to loft at least 3 surfaces. We're going to create at least 3 arrays. We can either do a polar array around a center point. We can do a rectangular array, which would create a grid-like pattern. Or we can do an array along a curve. Last, I'm going to ask us to create at least 3 pipes. We need to create an initial curve or line to pipe around. And one of those pipes is going to have to be on a helix or a spiral. I'll show you how to create both of those. We need to have an upper arm on a labeled layer called upper arm. We need to have an elbow that's on a labeled layer called elbow. Lower arm as well as a gripper. And I'm going to ask you all to create sketches and to upload those sketches to Google Classroom. I would like you to create your sketch by hand, but if you'd rather create something in Paint, MS Paint, or even the program Paintbrush, I believe Chromebooks have a program called Paintbrush, and I believe a Mac has a program called Paintbrush as well. You could search for an onboard paint type program with whatever device you are using. Most have a free one. I do have a sketch that I've created. We'll look at this, and then we'll also look at the rubric and kind of look at the two side by side. Again, we're disregarding shell. We're going to start with revolve. I'm definitely going to revolve this curve along our main axis. I'm definitely going to revolve this curve as well around our main axis in order to create the kind of forearm or lower arm as well as the upper arm. I do need to do one more revolve. I will do that at some point in the program. I'm going to split these sections away, these circular sections. They're going to provide like little windows into our character's arm, and inside the character's arm I'm going to create a helix, which is kind of what we're seeing here, and then we will pipe those. I'm also going to use pipe to create the fingers, and we're going to array some bolts along the upper arm. We're also going to array some bolts along the lower arm. I'll put the upper arm on its own layer, the elbow on its own layer, the lower arm or forearm on its own layer, as well as the hand or the gripper. These are the pieces that we will include, the tools that we will include, and the geometry that we will include in our 3D model. I believe in my front view, I'll start by creating my axis, creating the profile curve for my upper arm, the sphere for my elbow, the profile curve for my lower arm as well, and then the sphere that I will use for the palm. I believe that I will start the end point for my upper arm right at my 0, 0 location. Starting my line. I do have grid snap on, and I think I will use that for the axis creation. I'm going to make my upper arm, this major grid line is 5 units. This is 5 units. 5 more, and then 5 more. My upper arm, I believe I will make 20 units long. I think I'll create my elbow at this point, and I think I'll give it a radius. When I create this, I want ortho on. I'll give it a radius of 3. 1, 2, 3. And if my upper arm is 20, I probably will make my lower arm 15 units long. So this would be 4. That would be 9. This would be 14, and then plus 1 more would be 15. And last I will make the palm. The palm I will use a sphere, and I will make the radius of that probably 2. 1, 2. Slightly smaller than the elbow. I'll maximize my front viewport, and I will create the profile curve to revolve for my upper arm. It kind of arcs, has this arch to it. I'm going to try to recreate that as I make my robot's arm. I think I'll take grid snap off as well as ortho off. Actually, I'm going to put grid snap back on. I like that profile. Next, we'll create the forearm. I'll start here, bring this up slightly. They have a kind of a similar look to them. We're trying to keep some continuity in our design. So rather than make the top of the arm boxy and chunky and the bottom smooth, we're trying to make both profile curves somewhat similar. Next, I will revolve these. It's a surface, so we would like to revolve. I'll select both curves and select that as our axis. Looks good. We'll select the full circle option. When we look at this in our perspective viewport, we're getting an idea of what this is beginning to look like. I don't like that these are hollow, so underneath my solid commands, I have an option to cap planar holes. Anything that is a flat two-dimensional hole, this will cap. So we'll select both surfaces, press enter, and they've both been solidified. I believe in our top view, we will want to see the fingers. So in our front view, we will just see the edge of our hand. The palm should be flattened. So I will grid snap that down so that this has become a little bit more flat, like the palm of a hand. In my top view, going to select my line, and I will deselect grid snap. I'll begin to make segments for fingers. I'm not going to make too many fingers. In order to have symmetry, I'm going to mirror this along a grid. And I think I will make one middle finger gripper, I guess it's called. Looking at these boxes and using these as a reference, I'm going to put a sphere that has a diameter of 1 at each of the intersections or corners where these lines meet. These are going to be the knuckle. When it asks for the radius, 0.5, 0.5, take off grid snap and put on the endpoint. Looks like we have an endpoint there. I will put ortho back on, 0.5, looks good. Next we will pipe these fingers in order to give them some width. I'm going to select the pipe command with round caps. If this is 0.5, I would like the pipe to be slightly smaller. I'll try 0.35. Enter, enter, and enter to use all those same values. We'll back out, look at this in our perspective viewport. I like it. In the next video, we'll begin to do some splits, and we'll begin to create a helix for inside of our hand.